Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Elliot, and welcome back to This and That Reviews, where I take movies and I compare them to other movies, whether you like it or not. This is Evil Dead. I almost said Rise because I was going to talk about Rise. Evil Dead Burn. It is currently Monday, July 13th. I saw this whenever I posted my short review. Was it Friday? Did I have Friday off or Saturday off or Sunday off? It wasn't yesterday, and it wasn't Saturday. It was probably Friday. Yeah, I probably saw this Friday. Um, but anyway, so I saw this Friday, and the too long didn't watch version of this is that I thought it was good. I think that it is my least favorite of the mainline, or I guess like sub mainline Evil Dead movies. The quote unquote spin-off Evil Dead movies, which I get are not spin-off movies. They are canonically within the same timeline of the original Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. But because I haven't seen all three of those in any real context, I think I saw the first like 20 minutes of both Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And I've seen none of Army of Darkness other than in clips. My Evil Dead knowledge comes from the quote unquote reboot, which I get is not a reboot, but in my mind it kind of is. It might as well be. It was with the first Evil Dead into Evil Dead Rise, into Lee Cronin's The Mummy, because Lee Cronin's The Mummy is a very spiritual Evil Dead movie. And I put all three of those above this one, but even in saying that, I still liked it. It has become what Saw was to me. Like Saw had diminishing returns, but even in the diminishing returns, I kept watching them. Like I didn't care that even a bad Saw movie is still an okay Saw movie to me, is what I'm trying to say. And even when I can like point out the things that I thought were wrong about this movie that I would change or that I didn't like, I'm still excited for Evil Dead Wrath, and I still think this was a good movie because I have the same expectation of all of the other movies within the world of this movie. I guess like an example of something that is not like that would be like the Matrix quadrilogy. I think that the Matrix Reloaded, which is the second one, is my favorite Matrix movie. I love a movie where it starts where the character already has all of their powers, and then you get to expand on that. I think that, like the first one is good, and it's like, it would be second in my, Matrix ranking. The third one is like pretty bad. And then we all thought that Resurrections was going to like reboot and reinvigorate the Matrix world. And that's the worst one. That one has very diminishing returns. So that even within that franchise, the third one I can say is awful and I don't like it. And the fourth one is unwatchable. Do not watch this. So it's not like, oh, I just like being in the Matrix world. I like any bad Matrix, in the same way that Saw is, I just like being in the Saw world. Even a Saw movie that I think is not great, I still think is okay. I like being in the Saw world. That's kind of how I feel about this world now. And so like that's kind of like my short version of everything that I'm going to expand into. I think that this is the worst of the four, including Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which is basically just Evil Dead Egypt, which is something that I heard somebody say on Instagram, like an Instagram reel, and I thought that was really clever. Because that's exactly what it is. It's spiritually an Evil Dead movie. It just isn't called an Evil Dead movie. It's just not called Evil Dead Egypt. It's called The Mummy. And if you called it Evil Dead Egypt, it would fit right into all of these movies. It might as well. Like, all you'd have to change is like the backstory and then have them read from the book, and that's it. Everything else can stay the same. You change the one scene where they're in the temple and they're sacrificing the kid, and while they're sacrificing the kid, you show them reading from a book, and it's the Necronomicon. That's literally the only thing you'd have to change. Everything else can stay the same, and it's literally an Evil Dead movie. And for you to say that it's not an Evil Dead movie, you are insane. But I think that this is the weakest of them, and I'll get into that in spoilery detail. So you can go watch the movie and then come back, and I would encourage you to watch the movie. And so here are all my spoilery thoughts, because I have a lot of them, and there's no way that I would do this review that might be pretty long without spoilers. I think that one of the strongest aspects of this movie is the idea that the person who did all of the camera work is amazing. I have never marveled at camera work like so much throughout a movie, more so than I did within this movie. There are so many cool choices that you would never expect in just a generic, splatter fest, gore fest, torture porn, horror movie. You don't expect to come away from, you know what? In that way, Saw had one of the best transitions from scene to scene that I've also ever seen in a movie. So maybe you would expect that. Maybe you do expect amazing camera angles and thought and, things like camera trickery. Because there was a lot of that in this. The scene where that when they're driving the car with the dad, that it's obviously going to crash. And the fact that they do that as an overhead shot, as opposed to being in the car and then the car crashing, because that's, every movie ever does it like that. They were like, well, you already know what's going to happen. Let's show you an aerial view so that you can slowly watch the car, like a plane's eye view where the car looks like it's moving really slowly because you're so high up, and spatially it looks like it's moving slowly, even though it's moving at the speed that it is, because how fast the car is moving. And then you get to slowly watch it crash. Like, that's such a choice. And I love that was so interesting. The scene in the bathroom with the crazy flip camera, where it like follows up the wall and then onto the ceiling, was so good. There were just so many really cool, camera choices and, scene setups and camera movements. The original teaser trailer where it's following your final girl as she's like going through the house, like underneath a table, and she's crawling through the house while everything is like happening around her. That's such a cool camera thing to do. And there was just like a lot of that. And I appreciated that aspect of this movie so much, to where I would encourage people to watch it just for those camera angles. It's just so unique. The kills are as good as like all of the other Evil Deads. My experience with Evil Dead, as I said before, I saw Evil Dead Rise, the Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and then this one. And when I saw Evil Dead, I obviously loved it so much that I wanted to go back and watch the one with Bruce Campbell. And I watched like I said, like 20 minutes of it. And I was like, this looks like I'm just watching a stage play. It's so low budget and it's so old that I just couldn't take it seriously. I trust that when it was created, it was really cool at the time. And it's just a movie that's so old that it looks bad. It just looks bad to me. And I couldn't take it seriously. And if you're thinking, like, oh, it's not supposed to be taken seriously because it's supposed to be funny, and like Evil Dead 2 is, like, then I tried to watch that. I had a friend who was like, you should start with Evil Dead 2 and then go into Army of Darkness, and like then you'll understand that it's supposed to be funny, and you know, it's supposed to be campy and it's supposed to be wacky and weird. And I'm just like, I started watching Evil Dead 2, and I was just like, maybe I just don't like this style for this. I don't want this to be funny. Like like if I wanted to compare it back to a Saw, you know, like the Saw franchise, if I saw Saw 1 and then really loved it, and I heard that it was based on a Three Stooges sketch, you know, dun, 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 you know, like, and everybody was like, oh, it's supposed to be funny. It's, you know, Jigsaw is such a hilarious guy. I'd be like, that's not why I watched this movie. That's not what I enjoyed out of this movie. Evil Dead was the most gross, ridiculous, over the top, like, you know, horror experiences I've ever like been a privilege of seeing in theaters. I will always remember my experience watching this movie. I remember the two friends that I took to go, or the two friends that I watched this movie with. I had a friend that was obviously all about Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and he took us to this movie. We went with our female friend, who I didn't know was going to like this movie, because I knew what kind of horror movie it was. I didn't know to the extent of what kind of horror movie I was walking into, but we all like were just in theaters and we were just like dying, and we were just like, you know, it was like, you know, it's funny. I don't have like the gross out reaction to grotesqueness and to what's it called, to death and everything in movies. I watch so many horror movies that my instinct is to laugh, which feels counterintuitive to like, well then why don't you like, you know, the funny version of this? It's a different kind of laugh. And I don't know how to explain it other than to say, like, you know, like when somebody's like arm gets ripped off, I'm just like, ugh, it's so gross. And then like I'll like start like laughing because of like the practicality of how they even did the thing. Or like I don't have the same like horror reaction as my girlfriend would have, for example, I guess. Like it's so insane that I start laughing. And so like when we were watching Evil Dead in theaters and they just started duct taping everything, that was like the funniest experience I will ever have in a theater. Because at some certain point we all started noticing it. We were like, does duct tape just fix everything? And like midway through the movie, we were just like, just duct tape it, just duct tape it. And then like later on in the movie, they do it again and he gets the duct tape and he starts wrapping it around and we were dying. Because like at a certain point, it goes from like, oh my God, this is gross to, oh my God, this is funny, because it's so gross and insane. And the fact that that movie ended with like the blood rain, like that is my experience with Evil Dead. That was my introduction to this like franchise. That it's super gross, it's super grotesque, it's over the top, it's insane. It looks so real. You know, like, you know, cutting open a tongue with a knife is insane. Like chainsawing off body parts, like that is what this franchise is. So I went into Evil Dead Rise, and that opening, it was like the best part of that movie. And it had nothing to do with that movie, which made me so sad for the rest of the movie. For the rest of the movie, with Evil Dead being such a high pedestal, it does not come close to the gore in that movie, because it is so similar. And I think my expectations were just way too high. And I was like, I walked out of that movie kind of underwhelmed, and that seems insane. But when the bar is Evil Dead, like that first Evil Dead movie, when the bar is set that high, it's probably impossible to beat it. And I feel when I walked out of Evil Dead Rise, I didn't feel like it beat it, and so it felt like it was worse. Now watching Evil Dead Egypt and now watching Evil Dead Burn, I'm obviously higher on Evil Dead Rise, for having that strong opening sequence. Now I'm going to get to Evil Dead Burn. Actually, no, I'm just going to immediately transfer into Evil Dead Burn. So I go to Evil Dead Burn, and with these really high bars that have been set for this franchise, um, these like really strong killer opening sequences. The Evil Dead opening sequence is insane. When the guy is like the whole way that is set up with like the two hillbilly guys like getting the girl in the woods and then tying her to the post and then like threatening to kill her. It's such a good scene. And then like the girl pleading to the dad, like that is such a good scene. And then she turns into the Deadite and whatnot, and then they have to kill her. It's insane. It's such a good way to open a film. It's such a strong way to open a film. And then it, like title card, Evil Dead, right? And then Evil Dead Rise. Like I said, it is the strongest part of that movie. Especially like obviously where she's rising out of the water and it says, and going up is the title card, Evil Dead Rise, right? It's so cool. Now, I was watching this movie and, like I was excited for like, what is the opening scene going to be? And that's my first problem with this movie. Like I said, I do have problems with this movie, which is why it's last on my list, which is why it would be last on my list. Of the four, it is the fourth best one. And one of them is simply an editing choice. The movie starts with the guy listening to the dad in audio recording, right? So it opens with this guy, and he's doing a lore dump. Like the what was it, like the Pact of the Circle or something, or whatever the thing is, the Priest of the Circle Hood. And like we found a device that can kill the Deadites. And then it cuts. Two guys in a boat. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is that scene from the trailer. This is the big thing. And it's like these two guys talking, and then the guy walks away, and then we're following the one guy, and then you have to reveal that the other guy is dead, and then he gets into the boat, and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the thing. And then like the same person from Evil Dead Rise, like that was in the lake, starts psychically burning the lake, right? When the guy is in it, the guy is burning in the lake. And I was like, oh, we're just doing Evil Dead Rise again. It's going to go Evil Dead Burn, right? That would be an okay, like I'd be like, yeah, that works. That tracks. And no. And then, like he crawls out of the lake, and then, like she gets out of the lake and walks into traffic. And then, like she gets hit, and I was like, Evil Dead Burn. And then you immediately see twerking, and then we're in a club now, and we got to introduce four more characters. Got to introduce four more characters. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like at that point of the movie, I was like, what are we doing here? I was like, okay, now we get to learn about four new characters in this movie. We've already learned about 3 characters in this movie. We're now learning about 4 new characters. Because I didn't put together that the guy in the first scene listening to the recording was the son listening to the dad. I didn't put that together because you don't have enough information yet. And so then now you're at a club, and then like they have the argument. He gets into his car, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna hit the Deadite from the beginning. And it's going to go, Evil Dead Burn. And I was like, no? Okay. And so he crashes, and then he gets out of the car. I was like, what are we doing here? How long is this opening? Like, the punchiness of the original, of the first two, of Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise, the punchiness of those openings are so strong. It's like it gets in, gets out, title card, you're sucked in. You're like locked into this movie. And this movie, it like just this opening, the cadence of this opening was so distracting to me that it made the rest of the movie, up until the dinner sequence where this movie really starts, where they're all around the dinner table, and it's a great scene. Like another banger of a scene in this movie when everything starts to implode by that dinner time, by that dinner scene. Everything that comes before it is so draggy. It just drags along at like a snail's pace. And there are kills and there are things that happen and there are setups to moments, which I did appreciate. I appreciated all of the setups. From setting up the construction workers outside of the funeral home when they're doing the funeral, right? There's a lot of setups. The gun in the glove compartment. It's like, oh, he just wants to feel like a big man. I love setups and payoffs. And this movie is a very big setup and payoff. Oh, here's a wine opener that I'm going to set on the table. Oh, here's a knife I'm going to set on the table. Oh, here's how I'm going to leave the dishwashers. I'm going to leave all of the silverware facing up. Like that's how I put away my silverware in the dishwasher to get dishwashed. And I'm going to leave it open. Like there's a lot of setups and there's a lot of obviously payoffs. The grandma's like her little ramp thing that she has to go up to get to upstairs. There's a lot of setups and a lot of payoffs, but the beginning of this movie, like the opening of this movie, felt like it dragged for so long. And and you're learning about this family, and that brings me to my second problem. My second problem with this movie is that I feel like this movie is starting to lore dump as much as Saw. The thing that made Saw worse over time was the fact that they had to keep tying the movie back into John Kramer's life because they realized that he was the best part of that movie. So after he dies in Saw 3, in Saw 4, they have to be like, oh, well, he was responsible for this movie happening. And then in Saw 5, you're like, oh, the thing that he did before in Saw 2 was responsible for the thing that happened in Saw 3 and 4 to be responsible for this movie. And then in Saw 6, oh, the thing that he did in 5 that informed this thing that he did in 2 that informed this thing that he did in 1 is the reason why this one exists, right? They had to keep connecting things just to say that Jigsaw is still a part of this franchise. And I feel like the start of giving the Deadites a reason to exist and giving like a weapon that a cult found to kill the Deadites, adding this amount of lore to this kind of movie, I don't necessarily know if I like the way that that's going, because it is starting to feel like if we're gonna start adding lore, it's gonna start getting convoluted. It's going to start feeling like what Saw, trying to keep together the Saw movies. And then especially with the post-credit scene of the mom from Evil Dead Rise coming back after she was definitively killed, after they have never done a post-credit scene, or how they rarely do post-credit scenes, how they never have a character coming back. That is an interesting concept, but it's yet another thing that is adding to the complexity of a franchise that doesn't need to be complex. When you look at Saw 1 and Saw 2, it is not a complex movie. I mean, it's complex in the way that, like there's a twist at the end and the movie is built around that twist. But it's not like trying to explain Saw 5 to somebody who has never seen a Saw movie, right? And when you get to Saw 5, you're basically in Avengers Infinity War territory of explaining how these characters are all connected. It's just so like, and I feel like if it keeps drifting to that direction, where we have to keep explaining like why this movie is happening and the Necronomicon and how there are 3 Necronomicons and how there's time travel and, like how there's, like these Deadites have just superhuman powers. They have like psychic powers, and they can like burn. And if you start trying to explain that, as opposed to it just being up magic and just, you know, like, oh, it's just because they're evil, right? If it starts becoming, oh, well, the Deadites back in the ancient times, there was a spell that were given to the Deadites, and you start like explaining it, it feels like what Rob on the John Campea show calls an impossible premise, where every time you explain something, it just requires further explanation. Like it's like an unlimited well. It's like every time you try to explain something, there are just more questions than there are answers. Like you're not given an answer. You could be given an answer, and now you just have more questions. And I feel like that might be where this is going. It's also strange knowing that they're trying to do all this like future Evil Dead, like, oh, the girl from Evil Dead Rises back. And you know, like, oh, the grandma survives at the end. And knowing that Evil Dead Wrath is a prequel to all of these movies. So the next movie, we're not even advancing the story. We're going back in, you know, like we're going back in time. It feels strange. That's assuming that Evil Dead Wrath is a prequel movie. That's like the rumor that's happening. But so like when they started introducing like all of this lore, and all of these like different, when they started adding all this lore and the dagger, that was a thing that distracted from me, or made the movie like slightly worse because I could see where it was going. But immediately, if I had to like say something immediately about the movie that made it slightly worse, was that, and this feels like such a weird nitpick because in any other review of any other movie, you would praise this. I didn't like the fact that there were so many characters that had actual backstory. Now, again, let me try to like express this. When you watch the first, the you know, of the reboot Evil Dead movie, right? When you watch that Evil Dead movie, it's characters going to a cabin in the woods, and there is one friend who is a drug addict, and they're trying to get her clean. You don't care about any character in this movie. Any character could die, and you don't necessarily care about them. They give you just enough to like allow you to understand who they are, but that's it. It's just characters, and you know the drug friend, right? The drug friend becomes a Deadite, and then the other friends must try to stop her and save her. And they obviously can't, and they just start dying off one by one. That's all you need to know. The second movie, Evil Dead Rise, it is about a family. It is about a family, and I believe an aunt. I haven't watched the movie in a little bit. But like the friend that is the other adult that's there, and you know the mom gets possessed, and you need to stop the mom and save the mom if you can, right? That's what the movie is. It's very simple. You don't need to know anything. This movie sets up the mom is having problems sexually with the dad. The dad doesn't like the son that didn't die. He loves the son that dies, right? And then he's estranged from his other son. So then you have that connection. You have the main girl who is brought into this family, and the family doesn't like her because she's Russian. And then, you know, like you have her thing with the boyfriend, where the boyfriend was abusive, but the parents don't acknowledge that he was abusive. You have the grandma who has dementia. Like there are so many things going on in this movie. There are so many like relational things going on in this movie. And you would think that would enhance this experience, but it just made it feel very convoluted. Like there were so many things that you're trying to keep straight in this movie where you should just be able to sit back and, like watch carnage happen. Or at least that's what these movies are to me. I don't want to, I don't need this to be a Christopher Nolan, like I need to pay attention kind of movie. And it became like an I need to pay attention kind of movie. And so in a movie where you're just waiting for people to like die in horrifically brutal ways, in like I know that there's somebody out there who could say this elevated the movie because now you care about the characters. My thing was that it felt distracting for a movie that I just wanted to be a simplistic movie, where the franchise has always been a simplistic movie, where it was never about like these complex relationship dynamics. And it's just like you have like a main problem and you need to stop the problem. It's not, like it's not, there's not interpersonal things that you're also worrying about as well. Like, yeah, but will they stay together? Like, like will even like the guy or the brother that survives, him and his girlfriend, he decides to refuse to shoot the dad in the car. Oh, I wanted to bring up what's a better car fight? The car fight in this movie or Deadpool and Wolverine? Drop it in the comments. Like that's all I could think of when this car fight was happening. Well, I was like, are we just doing Deadpool and Wolverine with like a different car fight? I thought that was like, it was such a great scene. It's such a, like the setups on the whole thing are just really great. They spoiled that her fingers get caught in the door when he slams the door. I did not think that her fingers were going to slide off. And then have her be fingerless for the rest of, I didn't know that she was going to come back and then like be fingerless for the rest of the movie. So that was a really cool surprise. It's funny. When you watch trailers for movies, you assume that the trailer is going to spoil like every kill in this movie. And the fact that it doesn't, the fact that there's so much more to this movie than what they show you in the trailer is insane. That there are so many more kills and so many more things that happen within this movie that they didn't show you and couldn't show you. Or just like the way that you think that a scene will end and it keeps going is also really great in this movie. I'm very positive on this movie, but I just felt like I needed to get my grievances out of the way first. Or, like sprinkle that within here as well. I felt that like the amount of relationship dynamics just overcomplicated the movie. And I think I could rewatch this movie and maybe push it higher on the list. But even like when you watch Evil Dead Egypt, it's just about a family. It's about a mom and a dad. You don't really care about the other siblings. And it's just about a mom and a dad like trying to like figure out how to save their kid. It's just about three people. There are other people in that movie. There's like the grandma and there's like the son. But like it's just about those three and it's not complicated. I mean, it's a very long and complicated movie, but it's really not. It's just about like a mom and a dad trying to figure out how to stop this girl and save their daughter. Like that's it. That is what that movie boils down to. You can't really boil down this movie. It's about so many things. It's about the Deadites being able to, as a new superpower, spread to other people like zombies. It's very much like a zombie movie, more than a possession movie, like what the other ones have been. I like the fact that she starts to read from the book and she's like, oh no, fuck that. Before she reads the last word. But then you're like, wait, but then you're like, well then how is the rest of this movie going to happen? And the answer is zombie infection. That blood can make you a Deadite. And if like saliva passes into somebody, if you pass saliva into somebody else, or blood into somebody else, then they will also become a Deadite and get possessed like that. That's an interesting superpower that I didn't realize that they had, that they just decided to add to this movie. Um, but I just feel like it's not just about the Deadites trying to get the dagger. Um, Even though, yes, it is what the movie is, but like that's not just what the movie is. The movie is about like all of the relationship and like the things going on within the family. I think that if I rewatch this movie and knowing that ahead of time, I think I will appreciate this more. I'm just saying, like, on first viewing and only seeing this movie once, it was very distracting to get into the movie. When the movie premise is super simplistic and there's not a lot of characters and, there's only the one threat and there's only like the main thing that we have to get rid of and the main thing that we are against, it's a much easier watch at the very least as a first viewing, in order to like feel like you get the movie. When they kept adding layers and layers and layers into this movie, it started to feel like it was overcomplicating this movie. And again, if I watch this movie again, I'll probably be higher on this movie. But as a first watch, that is my initial thoughts. As a person who did not watch a single review of my reviewers, and that is why I'm doing this review, so that I can finally watch what my reviewers had to say about this movie. That's how I felt coming out of this movie. I still think that it's good. I think that it's overcomplicated. I think that the kills are insane and great, and the camera work is amazing. And the performances are great. But we also got to talk about that ending. This is a franchise where, like I've said, the first movie ends with a blood rain. It's rain and blood. And that's such a, again, to use Rob's terminology, it is such a metal ending. It is such a hardcore, like, this is what we paid for. This is what we came for kind of ending. And you're like, yeah, let's go. Like, this is so good, right? And the Evil Dead Rise ending is so fucking wacky. It's like this weird, like, combined version of like these like three people coming together as a family, and like morphing into like this weird creature. And that's like what the fuck is going on, right? Like, what the fuck is going on with this movie? This is so insane, right? That's kind of how that's kind of the reaction to that ending, right? But it's still cool, and it sets up like the garbage disposal thing, or the trash combat, what is it, like the thing that she gets shoved in, like that's a whole like setup and payoff. And so like you get to that scene and you're like, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is so insane, right? You get to the end of this movie and you're like, what's the final boss of this movie? And then you see CGI Fire Guy and you're like, what the fuck is going on with this movie? It's the same kind of reaction, but a very much muted reaction. That's at least how I felt. It's another setup and payoff of the guy obviously waking up because he's knocking on the coffin, and it's obviously another like setup, and it pays off at the end where you see him and he's like full burn skeleton man, right? It was something out of like Terminator 2. What was funny was when like I couldn't help but like be like, is this what we decided to do? The entire scene, the entire end sequence of this movie. I was like, this is what we chose. This is what we chose to do with this. And then when he was sinking into the cement and you saw his hand, I was like, is he going to give the thumbs up? Are we just going to go full wacky with this and do the Terminator? And he does the thumbs up as he's like lowering. That would, like, at that point, I would have been like, right? At that point, you just got to clap. You just gotta like I was one of two people in this like theater watching it on was it Thursday? It might have been Thursday. I think I watched it I might have did I watch it I can't remember. Never mind. Um but I was one of two people in this theater, and I would have stood up if he did the thumbs up. I would have just stood up and started slow clapping. Like at that point, you just gotta clap. But they didn't. They don't even do that. So then I'm just mad, right? So and as I was driving home, and this is another one of those things that like I'm glad that I had time to drive home and think about this movie before doing this review. Um, all I could think of was how would I change it? How would I change these things and make this a better movie? Um, or like to me, like if these weren't problems, then they're not going to make the movie better for you. But for me, what would I have done to make my enjoyment of this movie better? Right? I would have deleted. So from the beginning, I would have deleted the sequence where he's learning about the cult and the dagger. And um, it starts with the brother that you don't know driving the boat, right? Or driving the car. And he's like, he just got in the car. He's like super angry. He's playing really loud music, right? And then he hits somebody, right? And you start the sequence there. And then you end Evil Dead Burn. The people in the boat, none of that matters. That doesn't matter at all for this whole movie. And then they don't even use it as a cool title sequence like Evil Dead Rise. Now, when Evil Dead Rise happens and they connect the end of Evil Dead Rise to that opening credit sequence, or that opening sequence, that's cool because your brain can connect that. If they took that scene and threw it on as a post-credit scene and added Evil Dead Rise because you're bringing back the mom anyway, right? And they took that scene with those two people in the boat and you put that as a post-credit scene with the scene, like take out the grandma scene. That's insane. And when it doesn't make sense and it's not anything, you take that scene away. You add the post-credit, like the mom coming back, and then you add this boat sequence to also tie that together to Evil Dead Rise. And then you're like, oh, that's the person that he hits, like from the car. That's a cooler way to do that. If you start this movie with the brother that you don't know is in the car, and then he hits the person, that's shocking in and of itself. And then you find out that that person is a Deadite, and then you find out that he has history, and then, she sets the car on fire, and then Evil Dead Burn title card, right? That's cool. That's punchy. That's direct. It's to the point, and it brings up all the things that are in this movie. It's the brother. It's the history with the, like, we were looking for you. It's like, oh, why were they looking for him? It sets up everything, and it sets up Evil Dead Burn, right? And I like the fact that Burn, it's more than just that. It's throughout the whole movie. She eats the candle wax. That like what's it called? Like they burn the house. Like I love that it's everywhere in this movie. It's not just that opening sequence. But I think that is a much quicker, much more direct, to the point, punchy beginning. And then you flashback, that you don't even realize is a flashback to that night, to that exact same night. And they're at the club. And that's how you open it. You open the real movie. To the ending, the whole movie, if Evil Dead was about addiction, and then Evil Dead Rise is about her being like a neglectful kind of mom, at its core, this movie is about domestic violence. It's the main character, who you eventually realize is the main character of this movie, the Russian girl. and the secret domestic violence that she has been inflicted on upon not only by like the boyfriend, but by the family that supports the boyfriend and that takes the boyfriend's side and thinks that he's just a great son. And she is held in together, and like the friends who, probably know that he's abusive and, also don't do anything. And she has just been silently like being okay, like with this abusive boyfriend. To turn him into a skeleton fire guy skeleton CGI fire guy at the end is insane. Now I get it. I get that it's a horror movie. I get that it's like, this is like the big, Marvel CGI battle, right? But I don't think it's cathartic for the character. In the way that it could be. I think you could show, like if you wanted to do skeleton CGI, I think you could show that he's in the house and he sees his family and he's skeleton CGI guy. And I think that he could walk out of the flames, like when he's going to eventually like, track her down and like chase her to the cement factory or the cement place, the construction zone, right? But when he like transitions from inside the house where he's obviously burning and is very obviously a Deadite, mourning the loss of his family and, like his family is dead. I think that he could get out of the house and transform back into the original actor that he is and just look like a normal person. Because then what you have is not CGI fire monster guy, Marvel battle at the end. You have a real guy chasing after his domestic abuse victim and being like, you're going to give me what I want. And I think that is a stronger ending that is not laughable. And you still get that he's a Deadite. She could stab him. She could shoot him in the face, right? And he can show real, real wounds, like if you did this to a real person, but they just kept coming at you, like you could chop off his arm or whatever and show that he's still a Deadite. And you don't have to, but I'm saying like you could do that as well, so that you understand that he's still a Deadite. He's still that skeleton CGI guy, but like to her, it's much scarier that he's just a regular guy. That's the scary part of this. It's not that he's a CGI flame monster. It's that he's the person that he always has been and is now very aggressively trying to murder her to get the dagger, right? It's a really simple change, and I would have been more positive on this movie had that been the thing. But the movie as it is, where he's CGI monster skeleton guy, is very silly. And I could have saved them a lot of money on like CGI effect. But yeah, like that, those are my thoughts. I thought that the grandma, in the idea that this movie franchise is supposed to be hilarious, the hilarity of this movie that worked for me was the grandma. The grandma is hilarious. Every scene that she is in is so good. When there's so much action and chaos going on, and then it just hard cuts to the grandma going up the stairs in the thing, and it's just that like as she's going up, I died in the theater. She is the best, like she's the funniest part of this movie. And it's the kind of humor that works within this movie. I think when it hard cut to twerking, I think that was supposed to be a funny moment, and it just did not work for me as a funny moment. It's like one of those things that is supposed to be a joke, and at that point, again, like I said, I was just mad that wasn't the title card. It happens later. And so like I am positive on this movie. I am very excited for Evil Dead Wrath. And those are my gripes. Those are my changes. What do you think? Leave your comments down below if you've watched this movie, if you like this movie, and yeah, I will catch you guys next video.